Thank you very much, students. Have you been to church today? Yeah, right. You've been to church today. Come on, just say yes. I've been at a football game where the team won. Come on. It's okay. Even if you're the person who says, well, I'm just the quiet type, Pastor. It's all right. Even the quiet type give at least a little bit of a shake, a little bit of excitement. It's so good to be here today. Some good things happening right around us, right? You can see it not only in this worship gathering with the confession of faith that Jesus Christ is Lord, right? Last Sunday evening, the vision team gave a presentation of a vision. That's it, just a vision of, all things working out, what could happen with our campus that could help us continue to use it for the next years until the next things have to happen to it, right? Because any building needs stuff. So they had spent time looking at that. Then the next step is, well, we just move to the next step, bit by bit. And so reports will come on that, and they'll have some pictures up. But again, the church, as you've heard me say, isn't our building. Sometimes people drive by and look at bricks and mortar and say, oh, that's a church. But you are church. I want you to know that. And today, as we gather, what we're about today is gathering this Mary Hill Davis offering. You're going, what on earth is that? Well, guess what? There's been a miracle happen. A little bit later, you're going to get to meet Mary Hill Davis. And since she actually lived and worked in the 1930s, she hasn't had the chance to go by the store and get new clothes. But she's going to be with us in a bit. But when we leave today, at the end of it, if you've come prepared to do so, we'll gather an offering. There will be children at the doors helping to gather that, and they'll give you a flashlight because we are salt and light into the world. And if you came prepared to participate, awesome. Our goal has been 100% participation, or as our children say, precipitation, which is okay because we need rain. But 100% everybody doing it. And just to kind of cheer you on, over in like our youngest kids, the little toddlers, 100% of them brought an offering today. You can get excited about that. Mary Hill's clapping. So I say that not to embarrass you. Because if you're going, Pastor, I didn't bring anything today, it's okay. Today's not the only day you can give. You can always be a part of participating in how Texas Baptists are bringing the presence of Christ in communities across Texas. We're so desperately, people need it. More than half our state has no connection with the faith of any kind. And so we want to get the word to them. So we conclude that. Like I said, that's our goal today. I just want to talk a bit today about influencers. And you can be an influencer without a screen. You don't need a microphone to do it. It doesn't have to be that way at all. Your presence really matters in the field in which you find yourself. Sometimes, so often, we think, I want to influence further afield from where I am, but Jesus has you where you are to make an impact and to make a difference. And it's important for us to realize that because we're called to focus as followers of Jesus Christ on what grows us, right? But also what grows us to advance the gospel. And God's doing some great things among us. We've got folks who are uniting with the fellowship, not just through baptism, but saying, hey, this is my church. Alicia Chason is back in the back row. She's got a bad knee, so she's not making it down to the front. But raise your hand, Alicia. Y'all can everybody look back at her. Oh, she's going to stand up. Thanks. Alicia is saying, I want this to be my church. And she's coming by statement from the Baptist church where she'd been before and about her faith in Christ and uniting with us today. So can y'all say welcome? Really good. Thanks, Alicia. We're glad to have you here among us. Because as a church, we're trying to find through God's Word, how do we sail through this? How do we make a difference? How do we make an impact in the world around us? How do we influence it? And we really kind of wrestle with that. But this Thursday night and the next Sunday and next Tuesday evening, I'll be with churches over in the Holy Land. One in Ramallah in the West Bank, another one near Tel Aviv. With those churches, those evangelical believers there, they're in a situation unlike ours. Can we just say that? Where they are, and they are living out the gospel, praying for us as they gather, as we live it out as well. And so if you could pray for them, I leave tomorrow on that journey to be with those congregations and some others and some meetings, because really when it comes down to it, my heart has been for years that those believers in Jesus Christ there have the message of peace that seems obviously to escape everyone there. And the damage gets done generationally over and over again. So we pray for them. But you know what? It's really obvious now. We have a message of peace where we are. We can speak it. We can share it. Like I said last week, we live in this time where the default mode is to go back to violence to handle whom you disagree with. And that doesn't surprise God, just to recap that. It's been happening since brother killed brother in this first generation of kids. And so we realize the time is urgent to make sure we've got a course God has us on. Now, when I was in school, I loved class. Class was good, but there were other things to do when you go to college. I'll tell this, Sometimes people look at teenagers and say, these are the best years of your life. Guess what? It gets better, right? Can you just say, it does get better? Woohoo, it does. It gets better. And so I got to Baylor, and they had this one course you had to take called, recreation and fitness that you had to take. And Kelly, I think, signed up for the one where you had to run all the time. I looked out there by the river. They had this marina and sailboats and canoes and kayaks. And then I thought, I can take a class in sailing. So good luck running. So I signed up, got into the class for my recreation and fitness on how to learn how to sail a little boat. And one of the things that was important about that is if you ever wanted to use the boats as a student, you had to have taken the class. So that was kind of good. It also came in handy for dates, but that's a whole other story. But I learned some things about sailing. And, for a boat to sail, it requires a lot of things. Some people say it needs wind. Well, duh. But it needs a sail. It needs a tiller. And it needs this really important part on these little sailboats that if you don't use it, you're just going to be blown around by the wind. And that was this little dagger board that you had to slide in. And it went down through the hole in the middle of the boat and went into the water and kept the boat from being blown sideways and to and fro. And more than once, somebody forgot to get their dagger board and put it in the boat, and they sailed away from shore and couldn't get back because they couldn't steer. They just went wherever the wind blew. I got to tell you, it feels like we're in the time where people are just wanting to go wherever the wind blows. And we have a message of direction and hope that can help people get to the shore. That's where we are. Quite simple. You hear nothing else, hear that. That's why we're here as a church. But the text that we have been looking through has been about being a disciple. There are these kind of goals that we look at for being a disciple. They're on the board, these kind of steps that are there. One is we want people to believe and follow Jesus Christ and be baptized as Jesus commanded us to be, gather for Bible study, teach and learn His Word, worship with others as we gather together in church. We can certainly worship throughout the week, but there's something about getting in this place together and singing and praising God. And then we're called to tell others our story. Tell others about what we believe. So knowing those things, let's remember once again the influence that Jesus gave us, this goal that He gave us to be, didn't have anything to do about likes or subscribers, but it had everything about making disciples. The disciples go with him to Galilee. It says in Matthew 28, in the Great Commission, they go to this place Jesus told them to go. They were obedient. They saw him. They worshiped him, even though some of them were still figuring it out. Then in the next verse there in Matthew 28, if you can put that one up on the screen for me, that would be great. Jesus came to them and said he had all this authority in heaven and on earth given to me. He says, therefore, go make disciples of all nations. In other words, he gave us a direction and a process, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And then it says, he's with us always, even to the end of the age. So that's good news for us. The message of the gospel is consistent. We need to remember that. He's given us this one direction to call people to follow Jesus. In fact, I like to just sum up a lot of my job as like, how can I help people follow Jesus? I don't need them to ascribe to a list. I don't need them to follow a personality. I just need them to follow Jesus. And if you can start following Jesus, other things start to line up in the right way in your life, right? I mean, I could give you a bunch of rules on how to have a better life, but if you're not following Jesus, what is the point? You will be blown around by the wind. We want people to just start yielding to and following Jesus Christ, and he will direct what happens with your time, your money, your family, your friends, your job. It'll begin to affect all of that in a positive way. It may be difficult, but it'll make an influence upon you. In Luke 8, Jesus has this crowd gathered, and they come to him to hear his teaching. So you can imagine there's a big crowd. They're there, the scene by the shore of the Sea of Galilee where this happened. Today, they feel like they found where it is. They call it Sower's Cove, and it's still got Farmer's Field beside it. There's a road that goes by that was an ancient pathway that now is paved, and the people could have gathered there, and somebody could have stood on the shore. They've done these tests, these audiology tests. Somebody could have gotten right there, maybe just a little bit out from the shore on a boat or however, and spoken to a crowd of people, and 10,000 people could have heard with utmost clarity what was said by the speaker in that natural amphitheater. Isn't that cool to think? The crowds are there to hear Jesus, and they're listening to him. And he says, as they've gathered this, he tells this parable, this story, and it's real familiar to many of you. He says, a farmer went out to sow his seed, right? Didn't have a tractor, right? So different times. You just had the soil, didn't have big plows, weren't invented yet like that so much. So they had the soil that they wanted to farm. He had this plot of land, and as he scattered seed, some fell on the path. It was trampled on. Birds ate it up. Some fell on rocky ground, and when it came up, the plants withered because they had no moisture. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up, and it choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil. When it came up, it yielded a crop 100 times more than was sown. When he said this, he called out, "Whoever has ears to hear, listen." And there's much teaching to be made from this parable, but Jesus says the simple truth. Your job is to sow good seed. The soil is accountable for what it does with what it receives, right? Now, we kind of live in a day and age where we're like, well, he'd got a great crop if he just had, fertilizer and a plow. But Jesus is just making a simple, straightforward thing. That it's really about for people to hear, grow root, bear fruit, and that the crop is grown, it says later on when he explains it to his disciples, through patient endurance. I don't know about you. I like things to happen quick. Do you like that? It's been said we live in an instant society. We get impatient in front of a microwave oven. Yeah, everybody's like, yeah. So Pop-Tarts, 3 seconds, too long. That's the directions for microwave ovens. And then it says, caution, it's probably hot. But that's a whole other story. We need to learn God works in a long time frame. I mean, if he's got a hold of us and we're saved And this is about his authority and his work in our lives and with those around us. He never calls us to force the issue. He calls us to share the truth. And so we are here to do that. And so it takes all of us to accomplish it. In Ephesians chapter 4, there is this text there that is a great description of how church works, right? It says, Christ himself, Jesus, gave first apostles, those sent out ones, those prophets, the proclaimers, the evangelists carrying the good news, the pastors shepherding, and the teachers there among the congregation for the goal of equipping the people for the works of service, so that the whole body of Christ might be built up until we reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, and we become mature, attaining the whole measure of fullness of Christ. In other words, we're in this process together, and as you'll hear, we're still not perfect, but we are being perfected, right? And in this text, he reminds us we need among us those anchors, those stabilizers, like the dagger board that help us sail on the course Christ has given us, that help that energy pushed into the sail, that canvas that pushes against the mast, that pushes against the boat. It keeps it on course. Paul goes on to say, then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves, blown here and there by every wind of teaching, and by the cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful scheming. Hate to tell you, there's some people out there to mess things up. But he's saying we've got this course there when we are in this together. He said, instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become, in every respect, the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. Right? I mean, when it comes down to it, who's in charge of the church? Jesus. That's a good, simple church answer. And so from him it says the whole body is joined and held together by every supporting ligament. It grows, builds itself up in love as each part does its work. In other words, every one of us gets to be a part of this whole effort. You know, that's why each of us were asked to bring something as an offering. Just something, right? There's no measurement of what you've done. We just wanted everybody to participate. Even if you had to scrounge underneath the seat of your pickup today, you forgot, and you got here in the parking lot, and you found like a quarter and a Sonic gift card. I don't know about the gift card, but anyway, God can take the quarter and make it holy. We just put everything that we've got and put it into his purpose. But if you still would like to pray about it, you're here, this is fresh to you today, and you do want to participate, you can come again and give. So again, this is a compelling thing for us to do, but it's not compulsive. We're not forcing anyone. We just want people to say, hey, I'm a part of that. And because of that, I want you to meet somebody who's a hero of missions to the stage. I want to invite Mary Hill Davis. And like I said, Mary Hill, as you're coming on up here today, we thank you for being here. It's a miracle. I want you to know I have heard about you for decades in Baptist life. And I don't know why it's taken me so long to meet you. It could be that perhaps
we had a little bit of a difference of time difference.
Okay,
yes.
Yes. Okay, thanks so much. Would you be seated here?
Thank you.
I want you to meet some pretty incredible people.
I see some beautiful faces out there.
This church has a heritage of ministry and missions that goes back to 1851.
Yes.
Here.
That's wow.
Obviously, some people have tried to be true to what God was doing with them in the moment and the work that was happening. So I'd just like to spend some time talking with you.
Well, I enjoy that very much. It's really nice to be back down in Texas. But I do have a question. What's a Sonic?
Yeah, good one.
Yeah.
We'll tell you later.
Thank you.
Because then I'd have to explain what's a drive-through.
Well, I'm not sure that is.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, we'll go forward with this. But again, I would like for you to give her a round of applause and thank her for coming all the way. We'll learn a little bit about her, but Mary Hill Davis for, well, you may say this, but I think 35 years, you worked deliberately and patiently in Texas missions that impacted not only Texas, but the world, and really the role of women and recognition of their role to play in advancing the gospel in so many ways. You were, I'm going to say, an influencer.
I guess I was,
yeah.
yes.
So tell us about yourself. Like, where are you from? How did your passion for missions start?
Well, I was born in Georgia, and about the age of 2, we moved to Tennessee. I'm not sure why, but we moved to Tennessee. Was there for a short time and then moved to Dallas, Texas, where I spent the rest of my life. I was born in 1860, and in 1880, I met and married my husband, F.S. Davis. Now, we had a son called Raymond, and they were both physicians, which I was very proud of, very proud of. We joined the First Baptist Church in Dallas, and it was only 3 years old when we joined it, and I was still a member of that church upon my death. So, great times there. But what we found out is that we started kind of locally looking at the needs of women, because we figured that women was kind of an untapped population that could really help with ministries.
Right.
And so that was our goal at first, is to bring women into it, also helping women. There were a lot of women that were in desperate need of some help. By 1888, we formed the Women's Missionary Union and began to kind of branch out from there. We became more of a state organization. And from there, in 1888, the union formed, and I, in 1889, became president. I first became the recording secretary, and I have it was kind of a personal thing for me to do that. We were concerned about the funds that were coming in, the offerings, that they were actually going to the missions and not kept into the budget of the church, which was understandable. So that was kind of my first little inkling to get into all of it. I had something to do.
You got at the helm, and one of the first jobs was
the recording.
It was a relatively new house, but you had to do some straightening up.
Yes, as the recording secretary. And then in 1906, I became the president and was there until 1931.
That's 25 years.
That's 25 years.
Yeah. I was reading through some things you said, and in all of your addresses, you never said anything about yourself, like your whole background in your life. So thank you for sharing some of your personal story. You were always, everything you said was about invoking the call of the church to do missions. So what are some things that you launched? What's your legacy of missions work in Texas, in the world, that you launched, that happened during that time that you were at the helm, so to speak, for 25 years?
Right. Well, we wanted to make sure that the gospel got out. Mm-hmm. And that was the big concern, because there were so many populations in Texas that did not know the gospel and did not have access to the gospel. So that was important for us to make sure that that got out, following Matthew 28's Great Commission, to make sure that the gospel, people were baptized and sent out as just disciples to do their work. Some of the things that I'm kind of proud of is that we started having the Texas Baptist Student Unions and Baptist Student Missions. And these were the opportunity to start some Christian-based organizations in the colleges and helping the kids out. And that was very important. And in fact, we have one that dates back to even before Texas was a state. I know.
Tell us about it, right.
Well, it was just very important that the people that were coming into Texas, because we had an influx of immigrants at that time that was coming to Texas, and that was important for us to try to get as much to them as possible. And so that's why we started that. And we felt, as even today, I feel that if we can reach the youth, we're on our way.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, just you talk about with the Baptist student ministries that meet on college campuses now. You probably would not have imagined the impact they've had on lives. So many called into missions and ministry through the years, and even equipped, right? Every spring, there are hundreds that go down to the beach at Texas for Beach Reach. And
Well,
do a
that's
ministry
neat.
there to other college students that are gathered. But they wear like swimsuits and shorts, so things have changed a bit. But you'd be glad because they're leading people to Jesus by the hundreds.
Whatever it takes.
So it's good stuff. So so what has happened since that time? Those are things that kind of got launched.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened over the last 100 years almost since you were a part of it that you're really
One of the
excited
things
about?
that I was very pleased to see was your handout that you
Okay.
had, that it talked about salt of the earth, and that this was an acronym for the S being service of ministries, the A being advancing of leadership, the L being love of the least of us, and T being the telling of missions. And when I look at all of the stuff that has grown up, to where we are servicing, human trafficking, and these type of things that we never even heard of, and these missions that are going on in that. I'm sorry, kind of lacking the name of some of the individual ones because I've been gone for a little while, but that they're, the helping of new churches, getting new churches started, and even helping churches that are dying, trying to revive that, putting in the necessary needs to make disciples, to get people to lead, and to go out and to spread the gospel for everyone is so important. And there's so many of those that have come across these last few years that do just that. We have a lot of what they call home church, apartment church, and these are missions that we can do to help bring information to them. There are so many people that are just in poverty and unable to go to church, that there are outreaches for these type of things that are very exciting. And something else that we're doing is in our TEL missions is that we are going overseas. We are going to other countries to help out. And this is something that was probably far-fetched from what I ever thought we could do. Mm-hmm. But because of your offerings, Mary Hill Davis has been able to stretch so far. Calling it Mary Hill Davis is kind of odd to me because it was always Women's Mission Union, and it was named that after my death. But it can't,
because you wouldn't give permission while you were alive.
No, I would not have, and that's why you don't know a lot about me, is because it's not me. It's not me. Yeah. It's what the missions can do. And only can it be done by the offerings that people come up with. And I'm excited I visited with some of your Wednesday night student classes.
Tell us about the time you spent with us.
I was so excited. The kids were so eager to want to give. Mm-hmm. And I contribute that to the parents who are telling them and getting them used to knowing that they need to donate. They need to make offerings and that type of stuff. And they had their little piggy banks, and they were so excited to get them filled up and everything. And, they were saying, telling me how they were going to go try to get their money. And I said, well, we're going to take it out of Dad's pocket. Well, ask Dad first, those type of things. But their eagerness to participate was overwhelming. Uh-huh. And then when I stand up here and I see these kids being involved in this, and I see future missionaries going out, it's amazing. It warms my heart.
It is amazing. So, thanks for spending some time with us the past few weeks. And there's this part of me, I'm just going to be real honest in the moment. I know you and I are pretending, but this feels really real to me because you're like one of my heroes in missionary faith. So I've had fun imagining getting to talk with the real Mary Hill Davis. So
you know more about me than I do, I'm sure.
I know. You spent some time with us these past few weeks, and right? So I know you've probably developed some kind of vision for what's needed. So as you've looked around Texas, what are the things ahead of us that we must pray for and provide funding for through our giving? What are some things that are really needed?
We've got a lot of refugees, immigrants coming into Texas that we need to reach out to. Okay. They're coming from countries, some of them are leaving countries that do not allow churches, they do not allow you praying or having a Bible even. So we've got to learn to pray for those and outreach to some of those things. Our kids, We've got to reach our kids, and I'm excited that so many of the organizations and stuff are even going into high schools and stuff. That's important. We got to get these kids,
Right.
because the influencers, as you tried to call me, they're not all good.
You are an influencer.
Well, I hope so.
Your influence has endured beyond the news cycle and beyond, because we live in this world where influencers come and go.
Mm-hmm.
But your endurance is, to me, what defines an influencer.
Oh, very
It's
sweet.
one thing to push against water for a little while. It's another thing to change the course of a river. And you've done that for us in so many areas. One quote you gave, I just want to kind of bounce back off of you, that impacted me. And you said, the only thing that can stop Texas Baptists in missions is a failure of imagination.
Definitely.
When I heard a while, but you gave that an address, is that God is still working and moving among us.
Missionary work is always an uphill battle. It's always uphill, but the rewards are great. And when you look at different missions and you see this one, there's always another mission that grows out of that.
Right.
There's always another mission that grows out of that. And that's always a need. And one of my quotes that I'm very proud of is that the field is the world. And wherever souls can be saved and Christ magnified, that's where we need to go.
Mary, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I think, isn't she looking great for having been at this for 130, if I get this right, 138 years?
38 years.
138 years she's been given that. So could you give her a hand? Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun to pretend, but I have to tell you, I was a bit starstruck sitting there just thinking about what that might be like. Hey, some things as we conclude today, ever so briefly, is that, you could kind of say this anytime, but I think it's right to say this is an opportune time for us to get serious about being a part of getting the good news out to Texas through the avenues that we have and the ones that we might be led to imagine. That's how missions happens. I look at, okay, y'all are right here on the front. I'm not aiming at this at you, but the mission opportunities before you, some of them haven't even been acknowledged or seen yet. The ways that you'll be able to lead people to Jesus. And that's what we want to be about, encouraging and leading for. So just 3 things to do that help this happen in an opportune time. Whenever you have a time of decision or an opportune time like this, first is praying, and that it would be join everybody in asking God how we can impact our area of influence, right? Ask God, how can I impact my area of influence for the good, for the gospel, with the good news, not with anything else other than that. The next thing is this. So, and I'm using, these are words like join, right? Providing would be this. Subscribe. Okay? Didn't even ask you to like yet, but subscribe to sharing the good news. In other words, be willing to sacrifice something and pay for it. I'm not ashamed to ask you of that. People get on your screen all the time and ask you for money. I'm asking you for something that impacts eternity. And so that's what really matters. So subscribe to that, provide, and then finally participate. This is more about just tapping something that says like, but realizing you have a place where you get to serve in changing the world. You need to realize your very being is your value to do good for God. Got that? So rather than just join, subscribe, and like, man, let's pray, provide, and participate. Not precipitate, but participate. I thought that was so cute. I'll never forget that when it said. I need to ask you a couple of questions. We're going to close in a bit. We're going to close, and when we dismiss and the music plays, we're going to leave from this place, and there will be those stationed at the doors to receive the offering if you're prepared to give it. And again, we're just going for 100% now I'm going to mess it up. Participation. And, Some of you, this may be the time you're reaching in your purse or your billfold. That's okay. Maybe this is the time you lean over to a buddy and say, hey, can I borrow something? That's all right. We want that to happen, so we're going to do that. But as we get ready to go, I want to leave you with a couple of questions. There's this quote from Mary Hill Davis on the screen. Near you is a great opportunity. What are you going to do with it? Walk away, ignore it, whatever. What are you going to do about it? This great opportunity. But I have this question that just God really put on my heart a couple of weeks ago. And it is this. If you knew Jesus wasn't going to come back for 10,000 years, if you had that knowledge, you knew, right? Jesus said nobody knows, but if you knew Jesus wasn't coming back for 10,000 years, would you do anything differently than you're doing right now? Right? But here's the second question. What if you knew without a doubt Jesus was coming back in the morning? I mean, that was absolutely certain true. You knew Jesus was coming back in the morning. Would you do anything differently than you're doing right now? Yeah, I nodded my head when I was asking that question. And then the third question is, why is there a difference between those two answers?